What's a seaweed brain?
Seaweed brain. Yes, we got another. More.
I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another.
Okay, thank you for reassuring me that they were going to include Luke in this episode based on the preview. That made me realize I should actually watch the previews. I don't know why I never do. No previews. We go into the episode with no emotional preparation and end up crying.
What is this?
What?
Why did you turn into an old married couple?
Not to change the subject, but I'm gonna.
I love them. I also love how more so than in the book, it seems like they're going for more of a sibling relationship between Luke and Annabeth. I mean, I don't know if they're going to cut out Annabeth's crush entirely, but I always did prefer to look at it as her just seeing him solely as an older brother. I never really bought into the crush thing.
Guys, they're like artists.
That comedic jump cut right there, I think that's a great example of how you can transition humor to a different medium, because you can't really incorporate things like Percy's hilarious internal monologue from the book, but then there's things like comedic jump cuts that you can do in a show that you couldn't do in a book. So I love seeing them come up with these creative ways to translate the humorous tone of the book. Okay, in case you missed this, before the episode came out, Uncle Rick posted this saying, rest in pieces, poker face. My man said, normalize bad movie erasure. Oh my god. Okay, Poker Face got an upgrade. This is incredible. I love them for this. All right, vote in the comments. Which song was more iconic, Poker Face or Levitating?
What do you think, wise girl?
We got a wise girl! We got one!
Where they came from forgot everything that was important to them. And they got that way because they ate
The lotus flowers.
I've said that I like them figuring out the traps. I think it's still much more believable, but that they would have made that connection. But I do wonder how they're going to add an element of surprise and suspense to this scene when they've already established that it's a trap.
Just don't eat anything.
I saw a comment, I wish I could find it. If this was your comment, let me know so I can give you credit. Someone said that Grover has not been eating enough cans and shirts on the show, and I concur. Let Grover eat a shirt! All right, I know everyone is on the lookout for certain Italian children. I didn't pick up on any Easter eggs, so if you did, let me know. Alexander Hamilton.
That it was awful watching you struggle and feel powerless to stop it. But that sometimes that's what parenting is.
That was a good line. Oh, that was a really good line. Look at my son. No, I will not stop making Hamilton references. I like how they've been incorporating more gods in the show than were in the book, not only because they've been including them in a way that really adds to the story, but also because I think having experienced adult actors really helps carry the show. And that's not to say that the main trio is not acting good or something, because they are insanely talented. I have been blown away by their performances, as I've said before. They are amazing. But it is, I think, a bit similar to the early Harry Potter movies, where it just helps a little bit to have, you know, adults there to help carry it a little bit, and it makes it a little more dynamic when you have people of different age ranges.
The reason we can't feel time passing is because of the lotus fruit.
We didn't eat any lotus fruit.
They pump it into the air. It makes you forget.
Okay, so the way they added an element of surprise and suspense back into the scene was by having the lotus magic be pumped in the air rather than in the food. I'm glad they put that in so they could still catch the characters and the audience off guard. I think the scene needed a little bit of surprise in it. I do almost wonder if there was a conversation in the writer's room about the implications of showing kids basically getting drugged in a casino. Some of you mentioned in the last video that the shift in tone for Gabe's character was deliberate, and I looked it up, and it was, in fact, intentional. So Rebecca Riordan basically said that when Gabe's abuse is in written format and in your own imagination, you can temper it, but when it's visual, it's very viscerally in front of you, it's triggering, it's difficult to watch, which I can understand. So I imagine that a conversation about the implications of showing children non-consensually eating drugged food in a casino happened, and maybe that's how the "oh no, it's in the air" change came about.
I was hunting for Pan.
Sounds great.
No, I mean, like, I actually felt I was about to find him. That I'd be the first. That I'd help save the natural world.
I love how they sort of use this episode to really give us Grover's want, which is to find Pan. I think one of the biggest things you can do to help an audience understand a character is to tell the audience what that character wants more than anything else in the world. This is essentially Grover's I Want song for all the musical theater fans who understand what I mean by that.
I killed the Minotaur on my first try, right? How hard could this be?
Percy is me driving, but I don't have the excuse that I'm a 13-year-old boy. I crashed into a wall once when I was parking. I don't know why I just admitted that on the internet.
The summer solstice passed earlier this evening. Zeus's deadline has elapsed. Your father has gone to marshal his forces and prepare for war.
They missed the solstice? Wait. The secret text. Huh.
I have to stop him. I have to keep going. If you can help, then you must help.
Okay, after watching that little scene, I do think this is an interesting choice. Not only because it's always exciting to be bamboozled, but also because this was a great character moment for Percy. Up until now, we've seen him really mostly just sacrificing himself for his friends. We've seen him wanting to go on this quest specifically to save his mom. And this is, I feel like, really the first time we see him making an active choice to do it for the world, to do it for no other reason than somebody has to, and so he's going to try, right? It's his, I will take it, I will take the ring to Mordor moment. And I think one of the best ways you can show a character's heroism is by giving them a choice to opt out of it. Having the solstice pass and then Percy saying, well, I'm still going to continue. I think that really is a great way to show us his character and his heroism. Oh, 4 pearls. Okay, wait. The secret text. I imagine that they're gonna have him lose one or something, which would make it more devastating. I think it's honestly better for Poseidon to give him 4 pearls because otherwise he kind of looks like an asshole. Sally Jackson, who is she? That was, in my opinion, another iconic episode. I feel like the show has a very solid grasp now on the tone, on the humor, on the characterizations. I feel like the chemistry between the 3 protagonists is really solid. Everything, it really feels like it's all coming together, and it's making me really excited for the potential for next season. Before we leave, I do want to discuss something that I have seen a lot of people talking about. I've been kind of wanting to add my 2 cents in, and I feel like it's a bit relevant after this episode. And that is the exposition and the pacing in this show. Is the pacing weird? Yes, but I think we have to remember that the pacing in the books is also weird. When you have books, especially in the fantasy genre, the pacing is always going to be weird because you have a lot of world building you have to do. And it is difficult to translate that pacing and exposition into a show or movie format. I mean, did we forget the Harry Potter movies? Because what the Harry Potter movies did to translate that weird pacing and exposition into movie format was to simply, for the most part, get rid of it. They cut out huge important chunks of plot and exposition, and as a result, for the most part, the movies have good pacing, for the most part, but they also don't make a lot of sense in many ways if you haven't read the books. Harry Potter book 4 has 8, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages of exposition that is just Barty Crouch Jr. explaining his backstory and what he was doing all year and the backstory for how Voldemort came back to life. And that is story that is essential to the plot. But it is basically just straight dialogue. He is just sitting there and telling Dumbledore everything that happened for 8 pages. So how did the movies go about translating that enormous amount of exposition into movie format? They simply didn't. They just cut it out. Does it make sense without it? Again, it makes enough sense. But the story in the movies as a whole simply isn't as good as in the books because they sacrificed story for better execution, right? There is a trade-off here when you're adapting very long fantasy books. You either get better pacing or a more coherent story. Now, obviously, this is a simplification. There are ways the show can improve the pacing and the exposition. I think one of the most notable examples is that instead of having Hermes make that allusion to time and then Percy explaining it to Annabeth, they could have just done what they did in the book. He runs into the man from the 70s, is like, dang, you're from the 70s. And that is a very great example of show, not tell. And it was right there in the book for them to take. I think they could have put emphasis on the fact that time was ticking, it was running out, to really help keep the stakes high, the tension high, and the pace moving very quickly. But I do think if you want to have a coherent story overall, it's hard to do without a certain amount of exposition. I don't think it helps that exposition is hard for any actor to deliver, let alone child actors who don't have as much experience with difficult lines, despite, like I said, all of them being insanely talented. I think that's another reason the exposition is just a little more noticeable, because if you compare that to the way Lin-Manuel Miranda, his whole monologue there was basically exposition, but the delivery felt very natural, so you don't notice it as much. So yeah, I think the show can improve by not giving these kids so much exposition to deal with. Is it possible to make an adaptation that has a perfectly balanced amount of exposition and good pacing? I think the Lord of the Rings movies is probably the closest thing we're going to get to that. But still, even in those movies, there was clearly still explanation that was sacrificed, which is why you get movie watchers asking things like, why couldn't they just fly the eagles to Mordor? I think what the Lord of the Rings did well to make Tolkien spending 8 pages talking about what Gandalf's horse's favorite color is work in movie format was they sacrificed the story that they could get away with sacrificing. So what I mean by that is that I think they sacrificed bits of the story that they assumed the audience could easily infer and really only kept the essential explanations. Obviously, this is not a simple task. I've seen a lot of people online saying, oh, well, the movies had better pacing. Yeah, that's because the movies sacrificed the entirety of the storytelling. That's why the pacing was better. We know adaptations are really hard to do because there are very few good adaptations. And considering how few good adaptations there are, I am going to choose to continue to be impressed by what the Percy Jackson show has accomplished. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you liked that. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. I'm Magic by Michaela there too. And don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments. I can't believe we only have like, it's crazy. There's only 2 more episodes. Oh my goodness. What am I gonna do with my life after it's done? I am going to Disney World next week. So I will not be able to watch and react to the next episode until I get home. So that video is going to be coming out a little bit late. Maybe I'll combine episode 7 and 8. We'll see. I'm going to try to do what I can. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this show together. This has just been so fun. It's been so fun. Okay. All right. Bye.